Nico's.
What did you YouTube, man? So we're here with the tier list. Alright, so we're going to break this tier list down by characters' utilities. Like I said earlier, this tier list is going to be completely based on what the characters actually do in the game. We're not talking about builds. We're not doing none of that. We're not talking about what gear you got on them. We're talking about perk chance and stuff that so they can be influenced by the builds or themselves. We're talking about the characters and what abilities they actually have. Alright, here we are with the tier list. Our heroes. We got Widow, Thor, Hawk, Miss Marvel, Cap, Iron Man, Kate, Hawkeye, and Black Panther. So we're gonna go to the top. I'm gonna give you my first S tier, and I'm gonna tell you exactly why I consider them S tier. First up is going to be Thor. Thor is my first S tier character, and here's why. So when we breaking down S tier heroes, we're heroes in general on this tier list. We're only going to talk about their specialty and their mastery. That's it. And because in their primary, we'll also talk about their intrinsic ability, because this is also based on like how they block things. So first thing first, Thor is one of the very few heroes in the game that can have the best movement, which is flying. Movement is a pretty good thing in combat. It's a great utility depending on who it is. So his movement is really high. He's a flyer. I think we all can agree he's S tier, like hands down. And then we go down to his intrinsic ability with Odin Force. You know, you hold down the Odin Force, you can actually attack people. It's a low stun chance with the lightning, and it has a high impact though. And the reaction is spin. It turns enemies around, and as we already know, crit damage can happen when you're behind the enemy. So he has a high chance of actually getting critical hits off. If you go down, you apply shock to it to additional targets. Then Divine Chaos is when it's full, several attacks in quick succession. You do it overcharges it, and with the overcharge, you keep attacking. It keeps it active until taking damage. So it just goes off on its own, which is pretty cool. And if you add it with a hammer's pin, you can throw it at people, and it's a block breaker. So he has one of the few characters that comes with the immediate block break ability, which I think is dope. And his ability to stun is just pretty much kind of mid tier. But if you add how much time he can use Odin Force and how much Odin Force stacks, it's a really good thing. And I think that's one of the main reasons why I put him on my S tier list. Also, he's one of the few characters that does damage and healing at a high clip. He can even revive heroes and give max willpower. Like, just look at some of his heroic abilities here when it comes down to the Bifrost for his ultimate heroic. He can heal on his ultimate heroic if you really want him to. He can give, like, this gives people 10% of the healing back. His support heroic, if you go down to Warrior's Fury, the second one, Hell's Discretion, he revives teammates. And on his assault, we all know how good God Blast is. I can pretty much clear out a whole room. Again, it's a low stun, but it doesn't really matter when you can just also get Odin Force off it as well. So he can not only just spam God Blast to get his Odin Force coming back, he can heal people as well as destroy people. Like, by far, he is a clear S tier character. He's amazing. Now let's move on to the character. I think he's the second S tier character in my eyes. I think there's only two out of his current roster, and this is my second S tier character. Alright, and the character I think secondary that's a really good S tier character is going to be Hawkeye. I think Hawkeye is an amazing character, and I'm going to break down some of the reasons why based on his core ability, his intrinsic, and his specialty and mastery, why Hawkeye is one of the characters that just stand leagues above everybody else. Now, Hawkeye is one of the rare characters that can just legitimately almost dodge in everything in the game. With his Archer's Instinct defensive ability, if you hold down his R2, and when he has a meter, it just completely dodges everything. Only thing he doesn't dodge is strong and unblockable attacks. That's something he cannot do. But it goes even better than that. If you press it just right before he connects with a parry, moving it himself out of the way, and attacking at the same time, which also gives him a medium stun and a medium impact, and it causes stagger, and it does medium damage, and it breaks block. So he has a really good defensive capabilities on his own, just basically just defending on his own. Just and again, you got Starling Disruption. If you add to that, it has a disruption debuff, increases critical attack chance for all range attacks for 25%, and it lasts for 6 seconds. So he can immediately counter that with just a really strong range attack, which is crit is pretty high. And there's also Rocket Arrow. You can do also just blocking at that, which is an arrow that's going to send them back. But some enemies are immune to knockback effect, but not everyone. But the damage is extremely high, the impact is high, and again another stun. That's a medium stun. And you're not even getting to his other intrinsic abilities with boomerang arrow and with the aerodynamic finesse. You put these two together, it's a great combo. That's a medium stun. It's pretty much, if you can pull them both off at the same time, in my personal opinion, you're going to get yourself an easy takedown. Hey, he can spam them as much as possible, but that's not just it. He also got Swordsman's Prodigy, which starts the launch combo. So if you want to get the launch going with him, which you all know is not only fun, but also it helps you with you get your marksman up. And again, these are also easy stun moves. So let's get to his special abilities here, which I think is just hands down what makes him unique. So his special abilities, we know he has healing in his kit. He has a recovery arrow. It lasts for 10 seconds, and you know you can get it to the point where it removes all status effects from a hero. So this comes in heavily in handy when you're fighting someone that's like gonna put like Cosmic or something on you. It helps you out a lot, and you can extend the Nanobot's range by 50%. But not just that though, you also have the abilities to add on to it like everybody else. So you can actually make it go longer. You can have a 15% heal ratio with in that area. Willpower goes up by 75%, and over time is 100%. So that's dope. But if you also want to do a secondary, you can do critical care, which it gives you 20% increased critical attack chance, another critical attack chance, and 20% greater weak point critical attack damage, which is great. But also enemies defeated with the Nanobite Swarm can give you your heroic drops back by 30%. So you could be just destroying people off of his support. His support can just literally just have you spamming out more abilities. He's just that dope. And if you do Nanobite Shield, you get 20% incoming damage defense. You counter that with the gifts. Enemies defeated within a Nanobite Swarm drop a 60% of intrinsic orb. So you can actually pop off Nanobite Shield, and then you get intrinsic gifts, and that way Hawkeye can continuously block, deal more damage, stagger, stun, block, deal more damage, stagger, stun. So he is a legit character for that. And Night Storm arrows, again, another high storm, stagger. You can keep it. It drops 10% heroic orbs on its own. This is not even an additional perk. This is what it does by defeating enemies. And it automatically gives you a second charge. So his ability comes with the additional add-on of a second charge plus 10% heroic drop, which can be countered. You can also do Ion Surge, which gives you shock arrows. And with the shock arrows, you also can add in the size of it. So you can do a 50% larger area of shock arrows. Or you can do Hailstorm, which give you cryo. It's going to damage enemies for 5 seconds of a cryo damage. But you could also increase the duration of it and the damage. So the cryo can last longer than 5 seconds, plus it deals out more cryo damage over time, so you can completely just slow a group of enemies with no freaking problem. And then there's also the one that does plasma, fire, which is immediate launch. But you also can have it build up all damage dealt by 30%, so the fire damage can continuously stagger and launch them in the air, and it can also keep building up damage by 30%. And then there's this crazy ability of his heroic. His heroic is insane. It's just by far just insane. So it can hit targets up to 10 times. It's immediate damage is high, breaks block, impact is high, and stun is medium. Its reaction is a flyback. But you also has a normal it can now hit a maximum of 15 targets before running out of energy. And then you can add it to making the number of targets up to 20, and it includes an explosive burst that just knocks by and staggers nearby foes. So you can go crazy. And if you want to add on to that, you can give them Twin Talons, which will give you 2 extra arrows that are going to be charged with electricity. and you can put also on that, it recovers willpower for each time it hits an enemy. So there's 20 enemies, 22 arrows, 2 of them electrical, and it's giving you back willpower. That's what I normally would run. And then he got some perks. We're not gonna go talk to his perks. We're not gonna talk about his perks. It's not about this. His dive bomb is another launch, and it's a really good launch ability. And it has high damage and high impact, and it breaks block and is an impact charge. You put dive bomb together with the bird of the hand, and enemies defeated by the hunter's arrow have a 25% chance to drop heroic orbs. So you know you're doing max damage. So it's a good high chance you're going to be destroyed. You know that it's a high chance they're all going to get smacked, and they can give you max. And again, obviously you can pair these any way you want to, as you can see I have here. But there's also Mark Prey, which will the hunter's arrow will utilize the current target enemy, allowing to concentrate damage against a specific target. So you can actually pop the hunter's arrow for with Mark Prey against like a boss or someone, and then if anybody else shows up, they'll still get hit, but the boss will be the priority damage. But if you want to, you can also do Hawk's Cry with that. Hunter arrows taunts enemies, draw an aggro away from nearby striking team members. So you can actually taunt everyone with the hunter's arrow, so while they're being attacked, everybody else can do damage. And his movement is actually pretty swift, I personally believe. His dodge is pretty good. He can just quickly dodge by just tapping circle. He has some of the easiest windows. For look how big these windows is for his perfect dodge. Hawkeye can dodge really well, and the grapple hook is probably one of the best movements in the game. You get to pretty much anywhere you need to go with the grapple hook. You can pretty much spam it out. I do feel like he's a little bit slower with his running, but he can grapple hook, he can wall run, he can vault over everyone. He's pretty dope. Hawkeye is dope. His abilities are dope. His defensive capabilities are dope. There's multiple ways you can build Hawkeye. His range DPS is by far the best in the game, just naturally. And this is the reason I think Hawkeye is going to be my second S tier character in this game. And I think a lot of people are going to put him as a second S tier character for these same exact reasons. So let's get back to it and start talking about our A tier character. Alright, so when it comes to A tier characters, I had to do a lot of thinking here. My first A tier character is going to be Miss Marvel, and I think this goes without being said that she could be an S tier character depending on how. No, I think the only thing that holds Miss Marvel back is her. She really leans heavy towards support, but Miss Marvel has like a lot of good hidden abilities that's in plain sight, and I'm gonna break her down and tell you why she's an A tier and could possibly be an S tier character. For some people, I can see that. But let's go right into it and let's just break down her abilities and why she is such a high tier character. Now, Miss Marvel obviously is a favorite of the creators, so she is going to be one of the easier characters to pick up. But here's the thing about Miss Marvel that makes her really dope. It starts with her intrinsic abilities like polymorph. Now, she can bend herself to do additional damage, which is a polymorph. We all know that. And it decreased damage and impact. Impact is a great thing to be able to do because it's going to basically knock characters back. It's gonna give you a better chance. But what people don't really understand is like it's really plain sight her damage. Not only that, but she also regenerates health over time. Her utility, her ability to be fit in any group is just immediately right there. So even at a hip check, you got the ability can be used to give. It can be used even if your energy is gone. So it doesn't help against unblockable attacks, but it's also a stun medium and is a high impact and it causes a stagger. Now this is a defensive capability that can be used even when your energy is gone. You know how many characters in the game that don't have that, but she does. She can always protect herself. That's just who she is. A lot of the characters got suits and weapons and stuff, but she is a living weapon. Go down even a little bit further, Shining Will, you regenerate 4% of your willpower per second when polymorph is active. That's pretty big. It doesn't sound like it, but it's really big considering how long you can stay in polymorph. Now she has Morning Star. She can immediately knock away enemies. It's a straight up flyback, and it's almost a freaking unblockable. The damage is medium and the impact is high. Again, she's all about impact, and it's an immediate flyback. And then Palm Strike, and if you press triangle immediately after parrying and attacking, you do a high damage stun attack that breaks through the defenses and it slams to the ground. That sounds simple, but it's a slam attack that does high damage, it breaks block, and it does high impact. Another good stun ability. If you see a trend here. Now Whirlwind, you know, hold down square, you hit all the enemies, and it can be used while I'm bigging as well. It drains your energy, but it does high damage, high impact. It does a knockback. It does a knockback attack, and it's a medium stun as well. But here's the best one: her high stun. It's the seismic slam. This launches enemies into the air, and let me tell you, if you can literally get stuns just by doing this to enemies on its own, this move is seismic slam is freaking broken. I love seismic slam. It's amazing to just get takedowns left and right with her. That's literally what you can do, and that's what I've been doing on my Twitch stream recently. I just been getting crazy takedowns. I fell in love with her. She has a lot of utility a lot of people don't talk about. But let's get into her special abilities. Her support heroic is obviously the best support heroic in the game, hands down. Not only does it breaks block when she does it, she can literally knock people back depending on, you know, just help herself out, and she gets teammates willpower. But it also recovers 65 additional willpower over a period of several seconds while activating Healing Spirit. So you get additional 65% willpower within that time of Healing Spirit. So you can fight harder while being healed as well. And it will automatically revive down teammates to restoring their willpower. That's an automatic. So she can drop Healing Spirit and res. So again, another character, res. You got Thor resin, you got Hawkeye resin, you got Miss Marvel resin. That's easily top tier, as well as dealing damage, and it increases the defensive strength by 20% while it's active. There's also the ability for Will to Live, gives you an additional charge, and on the next to that is Will to Fight, it gives you another additional charge. So you could have technically 3 healing spirits just locked and loaded. You do Life Spark, and while this is activated, it can be activated while down, and it can res you. You can res yourself. That's super handy. But you put focus hard on that as well, and it automatically gives you 100% energy for all allies and yourself. And that's I think that's something that goes without said, because like we all know, intrinsic ability is really popular. You know, you need intrinsic ability. It helps you out so much. So Black Panther's intrinsic ability literally adds a whole new utility to his character by just having a full meter. No, she has the ability to recover people's health in full, plus give them defensive buffs, plus give them a full intrinsic meter. That's insane. That is insane right there. She is the best support hero in the game. But also, you can do teammate willpower with balanced inspiration to be fully healed, and you can combo that with inner peace, which increases duration of healing spirits for 8 seconds. Now, we already talked about how earlier she gives you 65% of additional spirit over a period of several seconds. You can make that second for it goes longer with inner peace, as well as your defensive buff longer with inner peace. So if you were using your healing utility as an additional effect in combat, you can even spam it sometimes without even needing to be healed in order to keep a regen. So she does a regen really well as well, and she can do it for over distance as well. Let's not talk about how she can just cover ground. She's one of the few characters that is just walking that can literally cover ground. Especially look at High Five. This is a high stun. We're talking about her ability that is going to lead to takedowns. It is a high stun. The stun meter, her ability to rack up that stun meter is insane. She is so good, bro. And it gives you an additional, with hand clap, it gives you additional charge. And with backhand, it gives you, based on your chosen high five specialization, defeating enemies with high five refunds a portion of assault heroic energy. So actually defeating enemies gives her energy back based on what did you chose: high five, up high, down low, and too slow. So it's going to be energy based off of that. And here's up 5, increase damage against a single focused target by 25%. With this ability, she'll have an 8% refund of heroics. If you go for down low, can pin multiple enemies with a single activation. Down low gives you an 8%. If you go for too slow, adds a large impact. Too slow brings a 4% heroic ability. And if you do, here's on the other side, she has helping hand, is based on chosen high five specialization. Again, defeating high five enemies has a chance to create region packs. So not only can her initial ability is to recharge Assault Heroic. She can also recharge Region Packs. She can do Patty Cake. They'll do Heroic Orbs. Or she can do Applause, which will give you Intrinsic Orbs. So you see why I had to break these down differently? Because that's how it works. Like, her utility for her Assault Heroic is insane, man. If you just use her off Heroics alone, she can go crazy. Like, if you do up high, you get 90% intrinsic. But say, you know, like, I don't want to go like that, you know, so let's do, I'm on Heroics. Then do up high. You get a 60% chance of getting those Heroic Orbs back by just using up high. And that is increase the single damage by 25% per enemy, and it's also going to give you your heroic energy up high by 20% as well, refunds a portion. So you get 20% refund, and you have a 60% chance to also give herself back more orbs. Come on, man. You gotta see what this is right now. You gotta see what she's building. She's an assault heroic beast. She is a energy heroic monster, and that brings me to Embiggen. Now she does increased damage and impact in Embiggen. Damage is high, medium is middle, her stagger is high, her knockback, she has immunity is the knockdown, knockback, and status effects. That is dope. She is a immediate immunity. Now you go to living large and increases the duration by 5 seconds. And while walking tall, her willpower is going to recover by 30 seconds while Embiggen. Now, here's where Embiggen gets dope, and this is my personal build. This is my Mighty Morphin Polymorpher Miss Marvel build with Embiggen. I just stay big. Increase the duration for 5 seconds, right? And then I get additional seconds for every enemy defeated. And I just continuously just destroy to stay big. It get high crit chance, high damage, high impact. Enemies are just being cleared out left and right. The team is going crazy. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine. Because what you could also do is obvious distraction, and you can make her large in charge by letting her drag aggro from everybody, and it's going to give you aggro. And the other side of that is Fist of Fate. Critical damage is 35% while Embiggen, so you can have aggro coming for you while doing 35% more damage. That's crazy. But you can also do Doctor's Orders, and every enemy defeated while Embiggen will give you 25 chance of region pack, while Fist of Glory on the other side will give you a 25% chance of dropping heroic or energy. So you can, if you really wanted to just do a build that's just going to spam and not go off duration, you could do that, where she can just continuously regen, turn, get big, because you'll also have it with her assault heroic. And if you're not already paying attention to why she's so gold, and that's it. But let's also talk about her polymorphic dodge. This, you can dodge incoming attacks, and you quickly press it, you can dodge long distance attacks as well. So she can dodge attacks nearby and long distance by just tapping the button, and just pretty dope. But she also, you know, leapfrog. But if you hold it towards the desired combat, you can vault over a specific enemy, so she can choose who she wants to vault over. And she has this stendo grab, which allows her to cover ground, like, you know, Hawkeye would as well, or how Widow covers ground, which is pretty cool. And she's pretty fast. But you know, she can also hold it to increase her range. She can slingshot herself, so she has a lot of utility for her movement as well. Again, she's not a flyer. Obviously, flyers have a certain level to how they play the game, but she's really awesome. And I think, like I said, she could be an S tier character depending on how you use her and what abilities you want to use. But she's for damn sure an A tier character, and she's one of the more elite characters in the game. And that brings me into my second character that I think is an A tier character. That might be controversial for a lot of you guys, but I'm gonna break down her abilities and tell you exactly why I think she's an A tier character. Alright, so the next person we're going to talk about in this tier list is my next tier character is going to be Black Panther. I believe Black Panther is an A tier character, and it's all about his intrinsic abilities, his support, his assault, and his ultimate heroic. And I'm going to break it down for you right now why he deserves a whole lot of credit, and he's one of the better characters in the game. Alright, you can see here, from based on his intrinsic ability alone, he has the ability to block incoming attacks, and he builds up his meter for it. His cost low. Attempting to block a strong unblockable attack will deplete his energy, so he cannot block strong and unblockable attacks yet. Remember that. And It also can be performed in midair as well. He can pretty much block while running. He can block while walking. He can block while backflipping. The man can just block, and it just builds up his meter. And why we're building up his meter is because we're going to unleash it. Now he has Panther Parry as well, and he uses his ability to parry enemies and his little bit of kinetic energy. It knocks them back and staggers enemies. His unblockable attacks can not be parried. Again, that's a theme for right now. Enemies who have parried decrease impact resistance, making them easier to interrupt, which is huge. You want to take that into account. Now it just does a medium stun, has a high impact, and it does low damage, and it has knockback. Now he has formidable opponent, reduces the amount of intrinsic meter depleted by 30%. So when attempting to block or failing to parry a strong unblockable attack, which is good because it helps you keep, because you build. You see the theme here is to keep his energy up. He has diminishing returns, increasing the base intrinsic energy threshold by 5%, allowing the suit to automatically generate more energy when it's low. So he also gets his energy by itself. Now he has kinetic burst, which can be at his ability to like combo finishers. If you hold it R2 before actually finishing a combo, he'll do a burst of kinetic energy, increases damage, it breaks blocks, and it has a very high damage, no stun utility there. But he has energy kick. If you just store the suit's energy, you do an intrinsic attack version of Light's reversible attack. So if you hold R2 before doing the kimono kicks to run the sprint kicks, trigger a burst of kinetic energy on each kick, increasing the damage of attack and dealing damage to target enemies, and that does a break and block. It does another again damage medium. The cost is extremely low. But if you hold R2 before doing out from under to trigger an additional blast of kinetic energy and launch enemies out in the air, he'll also has a high guard break block, and his reactions is trip and flyback, which is really good because again, he's all about using that sweet intrinsic energy. Now here's where he gets, exciting for a lot of people. He does percussive blast. It gives you 10% of increased damage done on pretty much any enemy that's any area. And it also does knockback, and it gives you for 10 seconds. It does high damage and high impact, and your stun goes up to medium, and it gives you that flyback. But also energy reserves. All actions that generate intrinsic energy will generate additional energy to fill the meter faster with overcharge buff is active, so allowing the effect to be retriggered more repeatedly, so he can continuously go back and back by not activating his ability to get his energy up, plus with that additional 5% we see in there. Also, you receive a burst for willpower when triggering it. It extends the duration of the overcharge buff by 3 seconds as well, so that's very healthy. That's very helpful. And if you get into his support, the beads, the beads, they do a lot of stun burst damage. Is a very high stun damage on impact. So if you can immediately go into takedown by just throwing out your beads. That's something to take into account, which we know takedowns are very important in this game. You can get region packs back, you can get intrinsic energy back, you can get heroic orbs recharge back. So that's just something that it naturally does on its own. But if you hold it, you throw out a set of recovery beads that seeks out heroes and recovers their willpower, which is dope. But they also can power up, and you can increase the amount of beads thrown to target more enemies if you want to go for more of a DPS route with him and do more takedowns, or the recovery beads can restore more health. So if we get to the additionals that you can add on for it, there's a communal armor. Recovery beads provide the energy armor. While the armor is active, absorbs 20% of incoming enemy attacks, which is really dope. On the other side of that, it extends the duration of the beads by 10% for both, and recovery beads for allies by 10% as well. So as you see, there's that recovery boost. And now you can do communal blast. Recovery beads provide additional offensive capabilities targeting enemies with bolts of energy, which is pretty dope. So recovery beads can be used to attack enemies from longer distance, causing meteor stun. So, and he also does stagger, so you can build up the stun meter with him. Or you can do communal missiles. Recovery beads will automatically shoot and destroy enemy projectiles fired at the hero, which I think is one of his best utilities, or one of the best utilities in the game for any other additional stat. So this way, he can stay in the fight and not worry about what's happening behind him. Now, there's also the third one. There is Kimoyo Stinger. The Kimoyo beads to target enemies, periodically releasing a small burst of energy, staggers the enemies that are linked to it. Again, more stun, and this is staggering enemies which can definitely help you out like in combat, because you get also the ability to break their block as well as do medium damage and medium impact. And then there's Kamunyo bombs. After it targets the enemy, you can detonate them, creating a large burst of kinetic energy at their location. And the best part about it is a high stun. So you can automatically stun enemies with the beads by just calling them out. And if you put this on, you can seek them out and then stun them again. So it causes knockback as well, and it's a guard break. So again, you can just keep helping everyone in a fight as well as helping yourself by just keeping enemies in an instant stun with his beads as well. Now his assault heroic, the King's Mercy, you know, we all know it looks good. It pins up to 3 targets. Normally it does a high impact and high damage with a medium stun. Crown's weight lets you throw the spear and increase the vortex that will stagger enemies and pull targets in its path, which is pretty cool. And because it's just active normally, so you can just kind of pretty much clear the area nearby. Forge of Vibranium, the last passive for it, lets you increase the damage by 15% while the meter is full, and instantly triggering the Vibranium status effect on our targeted hit. So you instantly give everybody Vibranium status effect if your meter is full. So that's a very good time to use it. But there comes the passives are a movable object. Now you also can hit them with a pulse energy, dealing 30% of base damage over time to all targets pinned by the spear, dealing additional damage to enemies that cannot be pinned. So you can throw it at enemies and then give them the Vibranium effect while also giving them an AoE as well, which is pretty dope. But you get Invader's Regret, and you can increase the power of the spell, allowing it to affect the spear, affect a larger area, destroying enemy projectiles caught in its path. So again, another ability to help him make sure no one else can attack him if he doesn't want to be attacked. Yeah, and if his energy is full, you can see the utility there as well. I feel like I use that word a lot, but the meteoric impact, you know, this spear is going to explode. It has a high impact, high damage, medium stun, but it also causes a flyback, so it can move out of room of enemies. But Plentiful Harvest, you have a 10% chance of enemies defeated by it to drop a heroic orb, and the tougher the enemy, the higher chance of triggering any effect, which is good. So it lets you, you know, gives you some return on that energy. No More Mercy, it lets you shoot out 3 of them. And it's smaller peers they can only pin 1 enemy at a time, but you get more spears. But with Father's Son, every enemy hit by the spear grants a 10% intrinsic meter. So if you really wanted to, you can throw out the smaller spears and get 30% back. Or you can throw out what I'm doing, the immovable object spear, doing damage to a large group, or the meteor impact, hitting a bunch of people and knocking them back, and each person that you hit gives you a 10% energy. So he has a lot of utility there in his assault heroic as well as his support heroic, which is pretty awesome. Now this is where I think BP becomes the most calculated depending on how you want to use them, and also the most just dope. Not to the point where like I'm so close to putting him as a S tier, the same as Miss Marvel, and only thing I think holds him back from an S tier is he needs intrinsic energy to be extremely useful. Thor doesn't really need it. Thor is intrinsic energy. Miss Marvel is intrinsic energy. Hawkeye's intrinsic energy. And there's another character that's high intrinsic energy, but he, unlike Hawkeye and unlike Thor, the diminishing returns on these 2 are kind of off. So Batch Chosen is going to summon the Panther Goddess. It's going to reduce your damage and increase your damage, reducing by 20, increasing by 10%, immediately doing high impact and high stun and high damage. Another one of his abilities is high stun. It breaks block and it lasts for 20 seconds. And now you can automatically use it to unlock intrinsic attacks without consuming intrinsic energy. So you can also do all your intrinsic attacks while it's activated without using your energy. So that helps you out with your spear, and that helps you out and get your combat. Now Ancient Defense, this is what I'm saying. He makes him definitely A tier. While his Bash Chosen is activated, it infuses a Panther suit, so he can now attacks that can now be blocked and parried with Ultimate Heroic is activated. That's strong and unblockable attacks. There's nothing he cannot block. There's nothing he cannot parry with Bash Chosen is on. So for 20 seconds, he is untouchable. That helps you with control, that helps you with the horde. Like, he is just goated while he has that energy high. So when Bass Chosen is on, you should not use percussive blast. You should just run that energy through, and that's one of the things that make him awesome. Also, you can increase the duration by 10 seconds with Divine Empowerment, and this is just a natural passive. So not only can he be unblockable, he can do it for 30 seconds, which is fantastic, but we're not done yet because there's additional passives, like the Adored ones. Triggering his summons 2 special kind of warriors that aid in battle, and they stay out the whole time, and they do vibranium damage the whole time, and they're pretty good to look at, and they're really awesome. Now, also, you can do, while the ultimate heroic is active, the kinetic burst from percussive blast is supercharged, dealing additional damage, making it a heroic attack. So you get an additional heroic attack from percussive blast, and it scales with your valor. And we're talking about damage. Now, that does come with the ability of you losing your energy, so you would need to have perks to get your energy or your intrinsic back immediately. But with that being said, though, you can just completely just knock off in a percussive blast right before the very end of it and just do massive valor damage. But you can also do King of the Necropolis, which is going to revive fallen heroes and restore willpower. It also can revive you in a down state. Another hero, as you can see a trend of like top tier list, another hero who can revive heroes and who can heal himself in combat, which is just a top tier ability in my opinion. And history is shared. Triggering it will grant all nearby heroes a burst of that will fill their intrinsic meters, which is just goated. Another hero that does immediately fill everybody's intrinsic meter, and then we're talking about give everybody the ability to just completely use with their utility at its capacity, its full capacity, which is just completely necessary in combat to have on your team. Or you can do Panther's War, which triggering it will apply the Mark of the Blast, debuffing all enemies, increasing the damage taken from all sources by 10%, and reducing the damage of all their attacks by 15%. Again, you already started off with a damage increase of 10% and damage reduction by 20%. Now you can take it to 35% for the 35% for damage reduction and 20% for damage increase, not depending on what you already have on your character. Or you could do Realm Shift, where it lets you hold down circle and you can have a Bass teleport Black Panther towards the enemies, so he can just kind of just do a whole teleportation ability once it's activated, kind of like how Kate does, and that just makes it that much better. And so it just depends on how you want to use him as well. But again, as you can see, well, he's definitely an A tier character, and it's just in his his build. Vibranium senses, dodge and all that good stuff, same as everybody else. He can't choose where he wants to vault, but he can vault. Honestly, blocking is the best way to go with him. He has a double jump in air, which is extremely useful. I cannot begin to talk about how good his damn double jump is. It's one of the best in the game, and he can wall run as well. And not only can he wall run, he can jump off surfaces, and he can drop down whenever he wants to. So he can wall run, he can clean the surfaces, he can drop down, he can attack from this. So his movement is unique and it's pretty good. I think he's one of, like I said again, it's the reason why he's in my A tier list. But let's go back, because I have another character I want to talk about that I think might also be a little bit controversial, but if you really look at her and kind of see what she brings to the table, you'll see why she's one of the better characters in the game.